Снова здравствуйте, мои уважаемые зрители.
Hello again, my dear viewers. In the yard we have April 11th, and the traditional review of events at the fronts. What is happening, and what actually can be expected in the coming days. Let's start traditionally from the northern direction. Today, a very interesting video was posted on Ukrainian public pages, that supposedly Zelensky's order was read out for the Ukrainian armed forces to cross the border with the Russian Federation and then attack Russian settlements. How can I comment on this news? In fact, over the past couple of days, they allegedly observed a very interesting regrouping of the Ukrainian armed forces in this area. Moreover, as I see it, some provocations are indeed planned in the western part of the Belgorod region, from the Sumy region and from the Kharkov region. Several thousand soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine are now gathered here, approximately up to a brigade, possibly up to 1.5 brigades. And it is possible that they will try to hold a demonstration in this direction. Also, a rather impressive detachment has been assembled today near the settlement Tyakino, a mechanized battalion. And now all these forces can really be dangerous now. They will definitely try to commit some kind of provocation, but given the fact that the Russian command is aware of this concentration of troops, I don't think they will succeed. Nevertheless, I would advise the residents of this region to temporarily leave their settlements in order to avoid problems. There is nothing to worry about in other directions. But in this regard, I want to comment on the events north of Kharkov. Because, too, a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors. Last night, there were reports that allegedly Russian troops were surrounded in the area north of Kharkov, that the enemy is advancing and cut off some of the Russian units. Nobody cut off any Russian units. It's just that in this area the armed forces of Ukraine occupied several villages from the so-called Grey Zone. It is possible that this is part of the preparations for this offensive to the west of the Belgorod region, the main goal of which is to pin down as many Russian armed forces as possible in this direction, and do not let them take part in the attack on the Donbass. And so, we dealt with this issue. Now, what is going on in the Donbass front? Gradually, in the area of Izyum, there are attacks on more and more southern settlements towards Barbankovo. Russian troops are slowly advancing, while inflicting powerful artillery and airstrikes, as they advance. There is an intensive work of unmanned aerial vehicles, but I repeat, as before, this is not yet the main offensive of the Russian armed forces. This is just a preparation for this very offensive. Well, the last message from Kiev, that more and more troops are being transferred to the Donbass. They have already been brought there to 100,000 people, but basically today it's not the personnel units that are coming here. They are simply not enough there. But reservists are already coming, and there is even information that the so-called territorial defense units are starting to get there. One of the battalions of which was transferred to the Donbass. And in this regard, I would like to make a very important point. Due to the fact that now the Russian armed forces will more often have to work not with regular troops, but with reservists, it makes sense to carry out intensive information work to inform the soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine so that they surrender faster, because many of them, in fact, are morally ready to do it. They need to be encouraged to do so. But also, judging by the deployment of the Ukrainian armed forces, the new Mariupol is supposed to be made in Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, possibly in Lysychansk. It is these three cities that are being fortified very intensively, very serious lines of defense are being built. And it is not excluded, unfortunately, that these cities can expect the fate of Mariupol. I can't say the same for other cities. Everything will depend on where exactly the Russian armed forces will attack. I can only say that today intensive artillery work is underway in the area of Vasilyevka, Stepnogorsk, this is the Zaporozhye direction, and further to the east. That is, Russian troops are gradually stepping up their artillery shelling and preparing for an attack here. I also want to comment on the next rumors from Kherson, Nikolaev. Guys, honestly, the commentators from Kherson really got me. How many times can you repeat? Panic in the city is deliberately bred by Special Operations Forces AFU and from the fact that every day you will bombard me with email messages that everything is bad with us. You need to turn on the panic. Look at your own messages that you wrote to me 2 weeks ago. How are they fundamentally different from today? Nothing, except the date. So, for 2 weeks you are nightmare with these messages. In the meantime, in this direction, the Ukrainian army is doing very, very badly. First, an attack attempt was repulsed. I already talked about this when the Rooks arrived. There was a small group there. It was attacked by artillery and aircraft. And this group has disappeared. Then there was an attempt to carry out some partisan sabotage. Lists of saboteurs were quickly, as they say, found. And the saboteurs, in the amount of more than 100 people, were neutralized. And some of the units that tried to advance in this direction fell into firebags. I understand your condition. I understand that you are on edge. If you really panic like that, leave, and don't pass the panic on to others. This is what I can say about Kherson and Nikolaev. Also, the main events took place today in Mariupol. Here, the surrounded garrison of Mariupol tried to break through, collecting all the equipment they had left, automobile armored vehicles. They marked them with identification marks of the Russian armed forces, and tried to move northward. Naturally, this column was crushed. A significant part of the soldiers were destroyed on the spot, well, some scattered around the neighborhood. Now they are being fished out. There was also a message that another 160 Marines had surrendered to Russian troops. And the seaport of the city is completely cleared from the enemy. Accordingly, at the moment it remains to take only Azovstal, and a little further north. This is approximately what is happening now on the fronts of the Ukrainian war. On this topic, that's all for now. Goodbye and see you tomorrow.
І до завтра.